Welcome back to another stream on writing macros. Uh, in order for you to get where I am, where you can access windows and collect information from them to determine some information to decide where to go, such as what quest you are currently on, or whether or not a box is ticked or checked, or what the price of an item is in the bazaar so that you can automatically update your prices based on some preset information, like I've done in Bazaar 2.mac or checkbarter.mac or something of that nature. Then you'll need to know how to access windows and how to manipulate the information in those windows. In this particular case, I'm actually running tutorial.mac I wrote quite a while back. I never quite finished it. It was more or less a precursor to understanding and getting the information from the windows and how to move and things of that nature. But I've since built that up in things like farm.mac. So we can go over here. This is the tutorial.mac, and I use things like a call to something called tutorial check. And in my functions list, you'll find that functions down here, and it basically just checks the task window to see if I have a specific quest, and then returns true if I do and false if I don't to determine at what point I am in, uh, etc. So in order to do something like this, you'll notice that I'm accessing the window, task window, which is the parent window, and then the child task list, and then some number, which I've identified as I, uh, section 3, and to see if it equals whatever I'm checking for. So when I do a tutorial check, and then I use a string that I'm checking for, then when I go back up to main, you'll see down here that, let's see, where is it? Like right here, I'm calling the tutorial check and I'm checking for basic training. So I'm checking to see if I have that task right now. And then so on and so forth. I come down here and I check to see if I have the Revolt of Glooming Deep. And then I say, well, if I do, then check for the quest Clearing the Vermin's Nest. And if I do, then go to the waypoint for vermin, which is down here. So then I call clear nests, and then I call Valara B, etc., and so on and so forth as the code unwinds and does the majority of the tutorial for you. I never finished this, and of course you want to stick around and monitor the progress of the character to ensure that they're doing the quest correctly and they don't fall behind somewhere. In this particular case, it looks like I'm on the section Mercenaries for Hire, though I don't believe, yeah, okay, so I did hire a mercenary already. Now it's going to do this and then go back and talk back to Elegist, etc. So I'm actually going to end this macro. Let's see if I'm even checked into here. Yeah, there we go. And then I'm going to finish this guy off. Now, I don't have spell casting or anything in my tutorial. Obviously, that would speed things up. So I'm going to kill that dude, and then I'm going to take control here. The purpose of the tutorial is mostly how to access windows. Like you'll see over here, I have this window. And you'll also notice I have a pop-up in the pink lettering, and it says large dialog window. And what that is, that's part of MQ2 HUD. And if I come over here to my MQ2 HUD, I have a section called Dev, and I got last mouse over text, and then some random looking numbers, which is actually what type of HUD it is. 7 attaches to your cursor, and then the XY location in relation, which is 50 and 0, and then the color code in red, blue, green, and then I have the code that I want it to process. And then back here I also have my little background. And the idea behind that is that I can go to a window and I can mouse over it and get the name of that window. In this case, over here for my quest journal, it's actually task WND for task window, or over here, large dialog window. And then I can use that information to access other information. And depending on where I put my mouse cursor on the window, on what information I actually see. So if I go in here, this is actually the text box. So anywhere in here should be my text box. And then down here, I have the LDW underscore OK button. Now, how is that information useful to me? Well, that gives me access to it without looking into the XML files to find the individual name of certain windows and then finding out what I have to notify in order to close this window. So if I want to close this window using this OK button, how would I do that in a macro? Well, you would use what's called the notify command. And here I have the Macroquest 2 wiki open for the notify command, and it's explained as /notify, window name, 0 or control name. A control name will be like your child window or your button or whatever it is, and then the notification and then the data if there is any. So in this particular case, we're going to be using left mouse up, and that's going to left click on the control name. Okay, and you have other examples down here, but all we're going to be doing is using this left mouse up, and it's going to activate the first hotkey in this case because it's notify a hot button window HB underscore button 1 left mouse up. So if I go over to my hotbars and I go to the outside edge, not on an actual button, I'll see that that's hot button window 2, and this is hot button window. So this is the first window, and if I hover over my melee attack, you'll see it says hot or HB underscore button 1. So if I were to use the command that is right here in the wiki, it would turn on my melee attack because that's what it's notifying. So in the case of this, I would want to access the large dialog window, LDW underscore OK button, and left mouse up. So let's do that right now. We're going to notify, and then I can mouse over and go OK. So it's this isn't case sensitive, though I do tend to type it case sensitive. And do large dialog window, and then I go to the button I want, and I can do LDW underscore OK button. And if I just type that, nothing else, let's move my mercenary window out of the way. So over here it says notify window or item, the control or 0, what I want to notify it, and any notification data. In this particular case, again, we're only going to be using left mouse up, so I'm going to shift up to get my previously entered command, and it's all the same. So I'm going to notify the large dialog window, and then the control is going to be the LDW OK button. So I'm wanting this right here. Okay, and then what I'm going to notify it is left mouse up. And when I hit enter, it clears the window because it clicks the OK button. Okay, now you can use this for various things such as closing a window, but you can also use it to access other information that you may or may not already have access to. So another example might be my mercenary window. So if I hover over that, you see it's mmgw underscore manage wind, WND. So that's a bit long-winded. We'll do a notify mmgw underscore manage wind. And then what do I want to do? Well, let's suspend, or you know what? Let's do this. Let's change the stance of the mercenary. Now there's commands for stuff like this. So when there is commands to do stuff such as change your mercenary stance, it's always better to use the actual command. But just to show you that you can manipulate the window for things like this, we're going to do the manage window, and then we're going to do mmgw underscore stance list box. So in the case when we're doing a list box, the information that you're going to pass is a little different than a left mouse up. You'll notice that both balanced and passive have the same information. Okay, so what I want to do is select passive. I want to put my mercenary on passive. So instead, if you go to your notify information, you see here where it's doing like the trade skill window, and I'm looking at a recipe list. Then I can do a list select and then 1. And if we scroll up here, we do a list select number. It says it selects the nth number item in the control name list. All right, so again, we have a list. Okay, this is a list box, and we have 2 items. That means 1 or 2 would be what I'm selecting. So I want to do list select, all one word. It's not case sensitive. And then I want the second one, so I'm going to say 2. And if I come over here and I hit enter, you'll see that it moves my cursor, or I'm sorry, my highlighted section to the passive. All right. Now, once I do that, now what I need to do is click the Set Active button. Okay, so this is the Set Active Stance button that we're going to be using. So I can backspace all that information, and I can say mmgw underscore set active stance button left mouse up. All right, and then I'm going to move my mouse over here just to kind of show you that when I hit that, it's going to make it turn green. All right, it has clicked the set active button for me. Now, obviously, I could just actually click balanced and then click set active. But when you're talking about using a macro, the idea is to limit the amount of times that you as a user need to manually control stuff. So you might want to change your stance to passive for some reason. And I believe there's a /stance command. Yeah, so stance passive. So I could just issue that. I wouldn't necessarily have to do all the work that I just did as far as accessing the window and then getting the names of the control and clicking those buttons manually, etc., in order to achieve that result. So when there is a command, you want to use that one because it takes less CPU cycles, I guess you could say, because it already knows what window it's accessing. It already knows, you know, the 2 options, or if you have an upgraded mercenary, the 4 options that you might be selecting. So balanced, passive, you know, reactive, etc. Now, what you can't do with that /stance command is you can't access the information in the box. Okay, and that's where something called what we call it, an echo, right? We're going to echo some information, and in that information, we're going to have the window here, right? So we're going to do the dollar open squiggly window square bracket open, and then we're going to put in the, what is it called, the parent window name. So in this case, it's mmgw underscore manage window, right? Now, from here, we can do a few different things. We want to close our square bracket there so that our window name is within the square brackets. Okay, and now we can either access the child element, which would be like this list, or we can access one of these buttons and get some information from it. So let's say that I want to just make sure the window's open. I can just type in open and hit enter, and it will return true for that, right? So I have true there. It's telling me it's true. Now I can also do the same thing, but instead of open, I can say child, right? And then I want to check the child, so I'm going to open a bracket and put in that control name, which is mmgw underscore suspend button. Okay, and then close the bracket. And then you have to tell it what information about that control name that you want to access. So in this particular case, I want that tooltip. You see, as I come over here and I mouse over it and I wait a second, my tooltip pops up and it says unsuspend your mercenary. Now, that would imply that currently my mercenary is suspended. That's not necessarily the case. As you can see, the option that I have is suspend, and my mercenary is available. Okay, so that general tooltip isn't really going to help me, but if I wanted to access the tooltip, I could echo that information, and close the curly bracket and hit enter, and it would output my text, right? So unsuspend your mercenary. All right, so that's not really going to help me because I don't believe that changes. What about text? If I put text on the end and echo it, it's going to say suspend, right? So if I want my mercenary to be up and I access the text and the text says suspend, that means that it's currently not suspended. All right, so if that text dot equals suspend, then it's true. Okay, so if this information is true, then that means that my mercenary is out. All right, so then I can use that in an if statement to say something like if the mercenary is not suspended, to suspend it if I want to suspend it. So I could do something like that. You know, use that in an if statement, access the window to check the current status. Again, that of course is something that we can check a different way. So we're going to hit that again. So I can actually just echo mercenary.id, and if I have an ID for the mercenary, then that means that my mercenary is not suspended. So if we suspend the mercenary right now, and I do echo mercenary.id, it comes up null. But again, if I scroll up and I check the text, what does the text say? Right? So the text actually says 4 minutes, 48 seconds. So I could parse that information and I could say that the left one, you know, so I could say the dot text dot left one, case sensitive left, and in square brackets put the 1. That way I could get the text is 4. So if that has a value and the left 2 is equal to M or S, right? So I could check the left 2. So that'd be how many minutes. So then I could delay that information, right? So I could actually collect the information from there, get the first 2, and delay that long automatically. Create a timer and say if there's still a timer, just return out of the subroutine. So if I came over here, let's go to this. I made this test.mac, right? So I want to access the information, right? So I am going to call checkmark. All right, and then I'm going to make the sub checkmark. All right, so if I wanted to check that information, so if window, and then I'm going to need my window information, right? So I can come over here and I can say mmgw underscore manage wind, mmgw underscore manage wind. Now I realize that my color for the highlighted line is not preferred. Might just change that real quick. So let's go into style configurator, say selected text color. No, it's not that one. Current line background is this weird purplish color, and we're talking about the background. So let's do like maybe a gray. Would that? I don't know that would work real well. No, it's still kind of bright. So style configurator background color. We can make it yellow. Yeah, that's gay looking. We're just gonna do. I don't know, because then you won't know what fucking line I'm highlighting. I'm not really sure what color to pick. Let me do more colors and do like a slightly lighter black. There we go. So now we can see what we're highlighting. Alright, so window mmgw underscore manage wind dot child, and then mmgw underscore, and then what is the information, right? So then I want the suspend button. Right, and then I want a dot text. So if it has a length, no, it's going to have a length. It will always have a length. So what do I want to check for? So text gives me access to a string, and the members of a string I can use a .find, and if .find is suspend, and then I close the curly bracket there, then I can do something. So I can do a block of code, echo mercenary is already out, and /return. So the echo statement you don't necessarily need. That's just there for the informational purposes of verifying it works. When you first do something, you always want to make sure it returns the intended result. In fact, if you want to, you can copy that information and paste it, and when you run the check mark, if the text is suspend, it will automatically echo this information, right? So then we can do, so if window mmgw manage wind dot child mmgw underscore suspend button close dot text dot, let's do mid 2 and 2. That'll give me the second character, or from the second character to the second character, right? And to verify that, I can say copy and echo, well, I don't want to slash delay, echo that information. So NS, right? So I don't think that did the way I wanted it to. It's be one character, right? So NS, that's the second to the third. Oh, 2 characters from the second character. So I would want the second character, first one. Some of the information as far as string manipulation I still figure out by trial and error. So sometimes when I answer questions, I actually go and test the information. Right, so there I have an N. Right, so if I want to unsuspend, then that letter is going to be an N, and if I want to suspend, it'll be SU, so it should be a U. That means it would be neither an M or an S, right? So I can check to see if that dot equal M, right? So that's one way to do it. And then I can say, or that information is an S, echo mercenary is on cooldown and suspended or dead, right? And then return. And all return's doing is it's sending me right back up here to sub main directly after I called this subroutine. So if I was to echo hi and then echo bye, when I run this macro, it's going to echo hi, and then it's going to call this subroutine. So this says, hey, go down here and look at this code. All right, and it's going to run through here, and when it returns, be it here, here, or when the subroutine is completely finished, it's going to send me back up here, and the next thing it's going to do is echo bye, because it's going directly after that call, for any that were unaware of that information. All right, so now if I do that one, it should echo that the mercenary is on cooldown and suspended or dead. That would imply that the second letter is an M or an S. That doesn't necessarily always work out. And I mean, 4 minutes and some odd seconds, you know, it should always work out. The chances of it being suspended longer are unlikely. To have a second digit and you know, as far as the suspend time. I'm not sure how long it is when they die. So again, that's just something we're going to have to test to ensure that this, you know, setup works. Now, if I wanted to do anything else with that, let's say I want to check if the text is unsuspend. Window, mmgw, manage window, dot child, mmgw underscore suspend button, dot text, dot find unsuspend. Now I could do a dot find or I could do a dot equals. So the dot equal would more or less be the same thing. So for dot find I can use parcel and say unsus instead of typing out all of unsuspend. Right? But either way would work in this case. I'm just looking for the information. So if the text is equal to unsuspend, close curly bracket, in that case I want to say mercy echo mercenary is suspended. Right, so if the mercenary is suspended, let me get him or her, them, back out for you. Alright, and then comes my notify command. So I want to notify. Now we already have the Windows parent name, which is this here. So we can say mmgw, and we have our two options here. Let's see. So notify the first one, space mmgw. The second one, all right, left mouse up. Okay, so only if my mercenary is suspended is it going to do that, right? So we've got that saved, and now I can type /mac test. Oh, look, I done screwed something up. Valid, no valid macro test.mac, no submain found. Where did I jack that up? Submain, so that's test.mac. Do I got it in the right place? No, I do not. Okay, so I got it in my test folder. Oh, shut up, Alexa. Turn her stupid ass down. Alright, so I can do something simple to fix that. I can just copy this and create a new file, right? And paste the information in, save macros, and then I can call that test.mac, maybe with less typoing. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and replace it because anything that's test.mac is something I was just testing and don't really care about anymore. Alright, so then we're going to run that again. Right, so it says hi. Merc is already out 3. That means it found the text I was looking for at 3, and then by. Right, so in this particular case, what it's doing is it's finding the word suspend inside of the word unsuspend. All right, and we don't want it to do that, so what we can do is equal suspend. All right, and then try again and make sure it works as we intended. All right, so let's say in hi, Merc is already out is false and by. So shouldn't be doing that, should it? Because I'm saying only if the text, oh, see, I changed it in one spot, but I didn't change it in the other. My fault. Equal. There we go. Now I said, hi, mercenary suspended. Let's get them back out for you. And then it unsuspended my mercenary and said bye. Right, so there's my mercenary. Popped it out for me. It ran my code just as I intended. And it was done entirely using window information. So I don't need this. I was just showing you how the flow of code worked there. Right. So that might be something I want to check right when I start. And you know, this is mostly just an example. All this particular function is going to do is suspend, or I'm sorry, unsuspend the mercenary if it's already suspended. But now our mercenary is out. Okay, um, this macro ends as soon as I've achieved the result that I want. Um, so it says hi, grabs my mercenary for me, and then the current macro is ended. And the reason for that is I don't put anything to cause it to loop in submain. It's just going to run that one subroutine, and then it's going to finish the macro. That's it, right? So in this particular case, what if the mercenary is already out and I run that same code? So I can run mac test, and it's going to say the mercenary is already out is true, and then it's going to end the macro. So right, so mercenary is already out, and then it's going to say this, right? So that's what I wanted it to do. It's doing exactly as I expected it to, right? And now what if the mercenary is on cooldown? So we can suspend, and then we can check mat test. All right, and it's going to say mercenary is on cooldown and suspended or dead. In this particular case, it's on cooldown and suspended. I'm not sure I can get my mercenary killed in this tutorial. Uh, maybe elsewhere, but either way it goes. All right, so I got that taken care of. So I know that that particular subroutine does exactly what I expected to do, and it's not going to try to unsuspend the mercenary while the mercenary is on cooldown. Now, those messages that I put in there, you can actually convert into what's called debug messages. And what the debug messages is to help you keep track of what your macro is doing. And just real quick, let's /declare debug bool outer true, and I'm saying true because I want it to display the information. And then before my echo statements, I can add if debug, it's case sensitive, right? So do a single line if statement, and then I can copy here and put it there and save. Now all I would have to do is change this to false and save, and it's not going to display that information. So I can macro test, and all it's going to do is end. It's not going to display the information. And why might I want to do that? Well, I might want to do that so that I can /go to, let's say, main loop, and at least a delay of 1, right? All right, and I want the main loop to be after anything I declare, so it doesn't try to declare things again. And I'll put main loop here, and now it will always just go back and forth between there, and the macro will never end until I tell it to end. So right now this macro is running. Let's see here. Let's close that. Oh, that is so annoying. Oh, did I break it? No, just a little bit of lag. I don't want that quest overlay. Alright, so you can see here the macro that's running currently is test.mac, and it will stay running like that. And what's going to happen in about 2 minutes and 15 seconds or so is it's going to unsuspend my mercenary for me in theory, right? But since I have it on a loop and I have a very short delay, then it's going to go very quickly. And while the button may already have been pushed, it's going to check again, and I might not yet have my mercenary out, and it might cause it to resuspend the mercenary unintentionally due to the way that macro is running and reading them windows really quickly. So that may or may not be a good thing. I've experienced this in the past, right? So what we might want to do is add a statement to say that if it is unsuspend and the macro is going to get your mercenary out for you, it's going to notify that window. Okay, well, then you're going to want to delay some amount of time, right? Let's say 5 seconds. right? So 5s will give me a delay of 5 seconds. But you have what's called an early stop. So if some condition is met before that 5 seconds is up, then go ahead and stop the delay, sort of thing. So usually what I will do is I will access the window again, if I can get my fingers to work with me, and check mmgw manage wind dot child mmgw underscore suspend button dot text dot not equal unsuspend close, right? So if I can get it to delay for 5 seconds, or until that is not equal to unsuspend before it proceeds forward, then the next time it reads it, it should not be unsuspend still, right? And then I can, well, in this particular case, it leaves that if statement and goes to the natural return, so I don't have to have a return. But if I want to expand this later, I should go ahead and put a return in there, right? So, and it did exactly as I said it would do. You'll see here it's restarted my timer, it unsuspended my mercenary, and then resuspended it. And that's, of course, what we were wanting to avoid and what I expected to happen, which is why you would need this delay in here. So once it notifies it, I just want it to go ahead and wait until that text has changed to something else, right? So now that I've saved it, I can end the macro and run it again. Now, when you make changes to a macro and save it, that doesn't automatically change what's going on in the game because it stores the macro in memory. So none of the changes that you make are going to affect how it is as it's currently running. It's not going to change anything that way. All right, so now we'd have to wait for this additional 4 minutes to occur. All right, so command, so /merc to open the window. Something we might want to do so that it can check that information is make sure the window is open. Now I'm not saying that it can't access the information, because in some cases it can, but what we can do is we can grab one of these window information accesses and we can echo that information, right? So in this particular case, it's saying that that is not the word suspend. I can close the window, right, and echo that same information and see if it says false still, right? So maybe I don't need to have that window open. The other question is can I notify the window while it is not available? That way we can clear up some of the clutter on our screen. Yes, I'm currently showing on live right now. I didn't see you there, Jag. All right, so yeah, as far as clearing up clutter on my screen, I might want to get rid of some of the crap on my screen. Maybe I can notify or get information from the quest journal without the quest journal actually being open. Then I can avoid ever opening it. Or I can just open it, read the information, and then close it, or do the notification and then close it, because apparently for at least the mercenary window, I can get information from it without having the window open, which is a good thing as long as the information is shown correctly. That particular instance, the information was false, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I could read it. So what if I check it to be that? So now I'm looking for some specific information. I can echo and output, and it says true. So it's finding the M, okay, and it's still showing true. So now we can see that it's actually accessing information. You know, we can actually just grab this and stop at the dot text, and we can echo. Oh goodness, echo. My keyboard does not like me today. Where's my home keys? There we go. That, and then put my in curly bracket and echo it, and it's saying that the text is 1 minute and 51 seconds. So I can read the information with that window being closed. Good Lord, people, go away. And for anyone that cares, this is a bum account. Don't really care if it gets in trouble or whatever. Just kind of going over information. It's specifically created with the intent that it's probably going to get banned one day. It's just more about sharing information. Alright, so 1 minute and 51 seconds is what I was showing. I have the new copy of my test.mac running, and depending on how long that takes, it's still stuck at 1 minute and 51 seconds. That's interesting, right? So maybe it can't read the information with the window closed. If I do that and read it again, oops, then the information is now different. So as you can see, I need the window open to access the information. Otherwise, it's just telling me the last thing it saw. That's not a good thing. Because then it's never going to update to let me know, hey, that button over here is now saying we're ready to go ahead and pop up our mark and let them do stuff. And there's my mercenary, right? So test.mac is still running. It unsuspended my mercenary without resuspending it accidentally. All right, so that's one of the things you might want to have to check for, right? So as long as that's true, so I can actually do an if statement here and say if mercenary.id /return, and that will get rid of this one. And then all I have to do is see if I'm waiting a little while, right? And that's going to achieve the same result. And that delay is important. You want to wait until the information is changed. That way it doesn't loop back through real quick and find that this is unchanged and hit the button again or several times or, you know, whatever, and cause you to unsuspend and resuspend your mercenary back to back. That's problematic and not the intended idea of what you wanted it to do. All right, so I don't even need to see this window in order for the mercenary to work, because I can read the information as long as the window is open. I don't have to have it maximized like that. I can have it minimized and still read that information, right? So let me check. So what is the text? The text is suspend, right? So what if I want to check something else? Time left, for example. All right, so here I can hover over. I see MMGW manage window. Okay, and I can see that I have time left label and time left text. Don't confuse the two. Sometimes you'll have a label and some text that are two separate things, right? So I can actually come up here, change the MMGW suspend button to MMGW underscore time left text dot text, and I can echo that and it'll say 12 minutes 38 seconds. Now, as we remember, we had a timer, and while the window was closed, it wasn't reading the new information, right? So now I've been talking for a few seconds. If I send the command again, it's got a different value, right? Oh, no, can't do it if it's suspended or minimized either, right? I have to have it unminimized in order for it to read it. So I guess we're just stuck with this window, and minimizing the window is going to hurt us. So what else can we do? We can just cram that window off screen, right? Will that work? Can I do that? So it's at 12:02, 11:59. Yeah, so it's counting down for us. So I don't have to have the window available to see. Just hide it like that. All right. So any of these windows that I have a way to access the information for, I can just cram them off screen. I don't need to see anything in order to access them. I don't need to know who my target's target is. I don't need my target window. I can check their buffs using the window access. All of that information is available to me. But that's really just a preference on whether or not you want to see that stuff or not. I personally don't mind one way or another. All right, so since I have to have this window open, I need to have something that checks to ensure that that window is open, right? So I'm going to create a new sub um, check window. Don't want to check the window. Yeah, we'll do it that way. So, and then return. For every sub, you need a return, and then I need to know what code I want to execute when I call the sub. So in this particular case, if I want to actually pass it a parameter, so we'll call this string open close. So if open close, am I doing too much there? Didn't skip over it. All right, so if open close dot equal open, then I want to execute the code inside this block. And slash if open close dot equal close, then I want to execute the code inside this block. Right? Alrighty. So I apparently have something done incorrectly because my color scheme is off. You can see inside my square brackets is where it's supposed to change color. So here I have mmgw underscore suspend button. I'm supposed to close that bracket there and then access .text, so that's my fault. But there, my colors are fixed. That's why I like having the custom language code here so I can see my colors. So let's say if I call check window and I pass the word open, doing something like slash call check window open. It's not case sensitive, this one. So it's just checking to see if the words are equal to each other. All right, so if I want to check it to see if it's open, then I can do an if window dot open, right? So then I want to say what window am I wanting to check? So I can actually pass that information to, and then make this work for any window. And I can say string what, comma, right? So now I can say what. So if window what dot open, and then I use this to call for window mmgw underscore manage window space open. So I'm checking the window to be open. So if the window is open, just return out. Right? Otherwise, slash window state what open. Right? So in this particular case, I'm going to check to see if it's open, and if it's not, I'm going to open it. Right? Otherwise, if I'm trying to close it, I can do this same thing here, down here. Right? So window state what dot open, and put an exclamation point to do the opposite. So if it's closed, then I can return. Otherwise, I want to window state close, right? And then I can call that up here. And if I save it, I can call. Well, I can't even see what the hell I'm typing anymore. I done moved my window. Not call. I want to end and then Mac test. Right? So if I close the window, should it not open it? Oh, seems I have messed up somewhere maybe. No, it's running. but it's not doing what I want it to do. So this is the purpose of our fancy debug statements. So copy, echo, or no, just paste in my debug echo. Want the window open, and then here I can make it block text, and I can say window was already open, and tab this stuff over, right? And then otherwise come down here and I can say if debug echo window was already closed, and I'm going to return out. And then here I can say closing window. Opening window. And then I can say true. And I definitely want to add more to this and go, if I'm debugging, instead of an echo, I want to delay 2 seconds. And that will slow down the main loop so that it doesn't just spam the hell out of me with my debug statements. Right? So now I can end and mac test and see what it's doing. Or at least I should be able to, but it's not doing shit all, is it? Right? It's because my mercenary's out. Okay, I see. So right here, if I have a mercenary, it just returns out of the merc check, right? So my window's closed. I already have a mercenary, so it doesn't care about the window per se, right? So merc suspend, can I do that? No, it just opens the window. Okay, so I'm going to suspend the mercenary, right? So the mercenary is on cooldown and suspended or dead. So there's my debug statement there. Oh, I close the window, it opens it right back up on me. So before it'll check it, it always makes sure that the window is open first. All right, and that's the intended reaction that we want the macro to have. So we can keep doing stuff like that in order to get it to do what we want. So in this particular case, that if the mercenary has an ID, I want to return, right? So I also, before I return, let's go end there. I'm going to make a block statement here and say that if the mercenary already has an ID that I want to call, check window, mmgw underscore manage window close. Right? So I want to make sure that the window's closed if I have a mercenary ID already. And I only want it to be open if I don't have a mercenary ID. And that's assuming I always want the mercenary to be available. So, and then one way we could toggle that would be to come up here and declare use merc bool outer true. So I'm going to say I do want to use a mercenary, right? And then I can come down here and say if use merc close, then do the stuff in between here, right? So I'm always going to want that delay 1 in there, but X do here and paste. All right, so then it's only going to check the mercenary if I have use mercenary Boolean value set to true. If I say false, it's just going to skip that bit, right? So the delay 1 is in there because in the event that nothing happens, sometimes it causes an error, which makes it just end the macro, even though you have a goto in there. So you have to have at least a delay of 1. Now, it's not necessary that you always run this code as fast as possible, but it does help. So when we run code like this, I'm going to go ahead and close this actually. I don't need that. I'm using that. that's the one with my changes. This is the old one. Okay, so I can close that one. And realistically, I don't necessarily need tutorial.mat. It's kind of based on it, so I can save. All right, so now if this Boolean value is set to true, then it's going to run this code in between these two brackets. Now, if I set that same code to false, then useMerc is going to be false. So when it does the check for the if statement, it's going to say, oh, that's false. I'm going to skip everything in those blocks. And all it's going to do is delay one and go to main loop. Delay one, go to main loop. And it's just going to delay the one. So that would be, of course, where you would add other stuff. So if use med routines, you know, so I could add more stuff in there, and I can come up here and declare it use med routines, and I can call that a bool outer true, you know, and then anything within this block statement would be used, but anything in this one wouldn't be used. So it's basically like that code's not there. The only thing is checking to see if that value is true every time it loops through. Now, I'm not really going to be creating those, right? So this is basics of accessing windows and getting information. And like I said, with that HUD, you're going to be able to access any information from any window. Some exceptions are context menus. So I can right click on my group window over here and it brings up a context window, and you'll see that my background is appearing because I do have a last mouse over, but it's not showing any information for me to access that particular window because it doesn't know, and that's not its fault. But if I pull this over, I can see, well, I can access the group window, right? So if I want to access some, well, we got 12 seconds and it should be popping my Merc back up, and then in theory closing the window. So let's wait for that real quick. You're going to close the window. Doesn't appear to be closing my window, so we'll have to check that. But anyway, so I can echo some information from window, open bracket, group window, close bracket, dot child. And if I want to come over here and I can check the GW underscore mana, GAUGE1 mana gauge dot text. There is no text. What about tooltip? There we go. So it can access the tooltip. But then you would need that character's name length and to count from here to there, and then remove the open bracket and remove that and replace information and store it to a variable and all kinds of crazy shit just to go, how much mana do I have? You know, because it pops up the name and all that crap in your tooltip, and there is no dot text, right? So we can go and we can look over here and say, because this is notify, this just notifies Windows. We can, let's go ahead and copy this into a new tab, and we'll instead say window. See if we can go data type window. Okay, so there's also TLO window. So it says access to types is window, so we can go back and go access to type window, right? So that brings me back to data type window. So these are all the informations you have for a window, right? So we can actually get their position on screen, the number of items in a list box. So you can actually find out how many items are in a list box or a combo box and create a for loop that goes from 1 to the end of that size. Mouse over returns true if the mouse is currently over the window. That's actually what I use to determine whether or not I'm over the window, and then to output that window's name. Let's see, open what the parent window's name is, which I could add to my development environment to actually tell me the parent window and the child window at the same time. Dot select selects the specified window, which you typically use to select a child piece of a window. etc. So you got screen IDs, siblings. It returns true if it has a sibling. The style code. You can access quite a bit of information about a window, right? So in my code, I usually just access the text and check it to be equal to something, or I can access the tooltip. So that would be here, the Windows text. The tooltip is the tooltip reference text. But I'm not really seeing anything that would display just like mana or something like that. If I go into the group window over here, yeah, I can see the GW underscore gauge 1, to where it would just tell me the value of that gauge. This is more or less how you would get the information. You could just check the information. So children, do close, do open, whether or not it's enabled, the height, highlighted if the window is highlighted, items, irrelevant, list if it's a list box. But these are individual gauges. So I got the stamina gauge, mana gauge, and just gauge 1, which is health. But how to access those gauges, I'm unsure. So echo some window.child, some child.do open should open the window in theory. I use the /window state command and just open the parent window as opposed to opening a child. I can't think of an instance where I would want to open a child. Let's see. Yeah, got nothing. I don't see an option for that, unfortunately. What's the overall goal of my coding? I don't really have an overall goal specifically for this particular code. I do a lot of macro coding myself, and I do have a lot of code already available. Mainly what I'm trying to do is explain how to access windows and then collect the information from the windows to make an informed decision in the event somebody else wanted to write a macro. I already have several ones that do such things, such as Bazaar2.mac or my parcel vendor. It'll open up the barter window, like /BART. So it'll open up this barter window and it will go through and select each item and look to see if there's other buyers and then compare the buyer prices, find out who's offering the most money, select them, and then sell your item to them so that you don't have to do any of the thinking yourself. It just automatically runs. So like Mac check barter, it will go through over here. I have 5 items I'm currently selling. It found 5 items to check. It's going to go through and automatically search for byline. So it says, oh, well, we got some rat ears here. And it says you can sell rat ears for 1 platinum a piece, the highest buy offer created. And it puts it inside of an INI file. And if I set to automatically sell rat ears, then somebody's going to buy them at 1 platinum a piece. I could just farm the tutorial and get hundreds of rat ears and make hundreds of plat. That's not necessarily how I would want to do it, but that's an example of how that would work. I'm probably not going to be farming rat ears anytime in the future, but just as an example. So that particular macro, it's going to check and make sure the border window is open. If not, it's going to open it for me. So if I run it again, it opens it for me. It's going to go through this list here and automatically select each one of those items. And then it's going to hit the search button. And if it finds a matching buyer, it's going to see if I want to sell that item in the INI and then just sell it for me. You know, so it's not necessarily something that's going to make your life a whole lot easier, but it prevents you from doing the same exact crap over and over again. It takes the monotony out of some of the things that you're going to do in Macroquest. And if somebody else wanted to access a window, let's say that they play 5 or 6 different characters, then they can automatically go through and set all their options the same. using a macro by accessing the window, checking whether or not the auto consent for group is automatically checked, and if it's not, to go ahead and check it for them, and they can just run that same macro on all their characters and set all their settings. Or maybe they want to set their prices for trader mode. It'll open the bazaar window, check all the items that they're trying to sell compared to other people's items that they're selling, and see if their price is better than your price, and then try to match or compete with their prices. And it's what you're going to do anyway. It's just faster letting the computer do it for you, as long as it already knows what you're trying to achieve. So there's not necessarily a leg up for one player over another, but it allows you to do what you want to do without sitting there for 2 hours trying to compare prices, just as an example. So there's no actual goal for this particular line of code. It's mostly just explaining how to access the information a window provides. Like, for example, the mercenary window has 2 tabs. And if we come back here and we look, we have tab select and a number. So if I wanted, I could do /notify mmgw underscore manage wind, and here I have mmgw underscore sub windows tab select 2. So it'll automatically select the second tab for me, or I can say tab select 1, and that will change the information I have access to. So if I want to switch merc, I can make a subroutine that automatically switches to the second tab, goes down the list of owned mercenaries, and find one that says healer or tank or rogue or whatever the hell the options are, and it'll find the one you want, select it, and then pull it out. So if you want to switch merch based on your group composition, well, if the group ends up with an actual player character healer, then I might not want to have my healer mercenary out. Maybe instead I want to have my nuking mercenary out. So I could create a subroutine that automatically detects who is in my group, what classes they are, and then changes which mercenary I have. Yeah, well, I don't know that it's allowed on any server. But yeah, it's an interesting scripting language, and most people that are using it are probably doing so to achieve results that they're not supposed to be able to achieve. Just the way things work. But this particular thing's actually built into base Macroquest, and Macroquest in general is designed to work on most emus, most servers, and things of that nature. It's just a matter of whether or not there's code made for it. So I think live would be less policed than a small private get together. So live tends to be policed more on people that are abusing it. So of course there's some plugins out there from some unnamed entities that allow you to teleport around and shit like that. And of course we don't support that at Red Guides. We primarily support automation of simple mundane tasks, or maybe you have a box and you can automate letting it assist you in certain ways, but not necessarily like, oh, I'm gonna run this macro and walk away from the keyboard. So like if I wanted to Mac tutorial, it would pull up the tutorial. This one I wrote too, so it already knows what point in the quest I'm in. So it's going to take off and it's going to come over here. It's going to get a quest. It's going to go talk to this person and that person, and go through the motions, and it's going to do the tutorial for me. Of course, there we go. So I was like, why in the hell isn't it doing anything? So I'm not going to just run this and then get up and walk away from the computer. I mean, I could, but then I won't know if it does something stupid. Can you build a smart buff tracker to track who you buffed and when it will fade? Actually, yeah, you can, and it's already been done, believe it or not. So you can build a buff tracker, and like I said, it's already been done, and it was done in kissassist.mac. Um, and it actually stores what buffs each person you've buffed has on them inside of an INI file, and then each character can read the INI file to get the list of buffs the other toon has and determine whether or not they need it to be refreshed or not. Um, So, I mean, most things that you can think of have already been done. Like, I was actually headed to that nest right there, and it detected that something attacked me. So it turned around to fight this spider, and then when it's done, it's going to go back to that nest and try to get the item out of it for the quest, just as an example. So I'm going to sit here and probably try to stab this thing forever. I'm going to speed it up a little bit by casting a spell, which I could automate casting the spells too, and I have, just not in this particular macro. I'm just trying to speed up this particular combat scene. Alright, so he's going to turn around and fight this cocoon. Technically, all he has to do is type /open and then loot the items, but I didn't program him to do that. So now he's saying somebody's low on mana. So it detects that my group member here is low on mana, and it's going to sit down and wait until my mercenary's done. Oh, but now I've entered combat, and it sees that. It doesn't care about the merc's mana anymore. It's going to turn around and start fighting this asshole spider that attacked me while I was trying to meditate. Right? So this is just an example of some of the basic crap you can do when coded correctly. You know, my character's still looking for a cocoon, but he knows he's in combat. But that's just a message that pops up while he's trying to do the quest. But yeah, so that should really cover the majority of your windows and how to access the information. We see how to switch tabs. We've seen how to use the list select to select an item and then hit a button such as set active. And we've seen how to watch a specific window for some information to know whether or not the mercenary is suspended or not, and then how to react to it if we want to pull it back out once the timer has gone away. You know, we've created a basic variable up here. Use merc to determine whether or not we should use the mercenary, which I've turned off. And we can set that to true, and now we'll run the code in here. Okay, so here's another example. So this is the respawn options window. If you see, I can mouse over it, and I know the window. So I can check that for information much the same way I did with the mercenary window. So let's say I want to automatically res to my bind location whenever I die. I don't need to wait for a resurrection or anything like that. So then I can automatically notify respawn when RW underscore select button. If I can get my freaking fingers back on the keys where they belong. Select button. Left mouse up. So all that's really going to do is it's going to smash this respawn button. That's of course assuming that by default you are selecting the bind location, right? So I can incorporate some of this into my code here, and I can check window, right? So I can come up here, and in my main loop I can say call check window. No, I can't even do it that way because it's going to try to open the respawn window, and you don't want it to do that. So instead, what we're going to do is say if window, what is it down there? Respawn WND, and I have a typo in that anyway. It's supposed to be an underscore, I believe. Yes. right? So I can come up here, so I can say if the respawn window dot open, which in theory should only be open if you are dead. All right, and then I can start checking other information. So if the respawn window RW options list, okay, so I can say if window RW, oh no, I need the first window, respawn window dot child RW underscore option, if I can spell today, options list dot list. Okay, and for these lists, it's going to be an array of information. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be 3 by 2, and it'll likely be up and down as the first one. So I can say 1 and then 2, right? So list 1, 2. I'm looking here. I want to find location. So I'm thinking it's going to be 2 dot text. Of course, this one's actually on a timer. Oh, well, looks like I got resurrected anyway. All right, so, and as you can see, my character is going to attempt to get back where he was. So I'm in the start area and I'm headed back towards the spiders, I think. I must have accidentally clicked on some crap. All right, so anyway, while the window's up is when you're going to have to check that information. I can't check it. So until then, I can comment it out or just let the existing code run, right? Because I'm not even running the test.mac anyway. I'm running this tutorial. I don't even know where the fuck this guy's going right now. Looks like he's going towards Rookfin. So the location information is stored in tutorial.mac based on my XYZ coordinates, on whether or not it knows where I'm at and whether or not I've mapped it. So now I'm in an unknown location because I never mapped that location out. Where in the fuck is he's trying to get back to this Gloomfang lurker, and what it is there's an illusionary wall that prevents him from doing that. So he goes as close to it as he can in the known world, which doesn't work out. I don't know that I actually want to fight this guy. Anyway, so basically, as I explained, you can access any window, including the MQ2 window. You can see this is chat window and this is chat window. How do you know which is which? Well, you don't. Get over it. You know, same for the hot button windows, the target hit points, the aggro meter right here, so secondary labels and all that crap. So all the information you need is on a window somewhere, and instead of your eyes processing it, you can let the macro process it. All right, so is there any particular window somebody wanted to be able to access? All right, so he's going to do me a favor and kill me again so that I can check that code, right? So I can come back over here, grab my code, and echo it. So no such int member text. So let's just see what it outputs. 0, what, oh, I got one too many brackets there. So it's saying 0. Options list, dot list. Let's look at our window TLO and see what I've done wrong here, because it's going to have some examples. So child, the item list, dot list, and this is an example of finding some specific text in the first one. Alright, so it returns an index2. So I feel like that should be correct. Let's look at it again. We got window, respawn window, dot child, RW, options list. Oh, I'm supposed to close that with a square bracket. My fault. list 1, 2. Okay, so it's going to say bind location. So if I can do that and do dot find, or yeah, we'll just dot find the word bind. It's going to say 1, which means it found it at index 1 or starting at index 1. So that's what I want to do in my code. So let's come back over here and clear that. I think what it is tutorial.mac already has something like this, right? So I don't need .text, and I need that closing bracket here, and I want to .find bind, right? So if I find the word bind, then I can /notify respawn window rw underscore options list select. We're going to call it I because I'm going to do something different, and that is, do I want to declare the IANT local up here? No, let's do that up here because I will always use an I. Declare IANT local O, and fuck it, let's make it outer because I'm going to be using this variable a lot more than likely. And outer O, so I'm going to set it by default to O, and then I'm going to say for IO to let's just say 3 just in case, right? I don't feel like accessing how many, and then I'm going to say /next I, and then I'm going to change this to I. And now it's going to check each one of those options until it finds the word bind, and then it's going to notify that list select location and /delay, and let's say 5, and then I want to notify the respawn button. So let's respawn wind rw. What do I want to notify? Select button. Left mouse up. Alright, so in theory that code should do what I want, and once I have notified that, I want to go ahead and break. But maybe I want to delay some random number until window respawn window dot open is false, right? So whenever the window is not open anymore, then stop delaying, break out of this loop, and then go back to your normal main loop. And I can actually stick this in its own subroutine. Okay, sub check def. Right, so now check def is in its own little routine here. I've made my I outer, right? So I don't necessarily have to select or create a local variable called I because I've already created it as outer. But we can cut that out, bring it down here, and make it a local variable to this routine only, right? So if the respawn window is open, and then only would I want to check any of this information. Otherwise, it's just going to return out of that subroutine. And then I can come up here and /call check def. Yeah, check def. Right, so it's going to check to see if I'm dead. And if I'm not, it's going to check my mercenary based on if this is true or false. That wasn't really needed. And all check def is going to do is go ahead and send me back to my bind point because I don't want to wait for a resurrection or whatever. I just assume, as far as like tutorials go, just run off and try again because I'm not really worried about it at this level, right? So, all right. So as far as accessing windows, their child members, and notifying specific Windows sections, is there any questions um, about doing those sorts of things? None? None at all? I know it takes a minute for it to sync. Okay, so not you, and not whoever viewer number 2 is, who may or may not be the Jag fellow. Alright, so I guess that's going to go ahead and conclude this particular tutorial, and whenever I do more tutorials, you know, it should pop up and let you know, assuming that you have started watching my stream. Um, you know, I don't know what Twitch's thing is, subscribe or follow or whatever it is. I guess you just follow me if you want to be updated whenever I go live. That way you can catch me on my next live stream. All right. Thanks for attending, and y'all have a wonderful day.